So good morning to all the students of class 10th D. Beta, as you know, revision days are going on. So we will be revising the poetry today. We have 3 poems in the syllabus. First one is Dust of Snow. So I will be just discussing the central idea of the poem, and then we will switch to poetic devices. You can see the page poetic devices. Keep your pen and paper ready and keep noting down. I will be discussing each and every poetic device one by one. Clear? So firstly, the central idea of the poem Dust of Snow I'm going to discuss. Dust of Snow is a small poem, beta, a very small and brief poem written by Robert Frost, who's an American poet. And remember, Robert Frost has written 2 poems, these 2 poems in your syllabus, Dust of Snow and Fire and Ice. So it is easier for you to remember the name of the poet, right? So in the poem Dust of Snow, if you have missed in case in past, so you can just pay attention, beta. My voice is audible to everyone. Kindly send me thumbs up. Okay. Yes, so this is the poem which is set on a wintry day, fine. And in the first stanza, the poet describes a simple natural happening, fine. Otherwise, we could have missed it. So I will be just repeating the central idea of the poem. Fine, what is the content of the poem? You can also say. The poet describes a simple natural happening. The snow is falling heavily, fine, and snowy flakes have covered the top of the trees because it is wintry. Snowflakes are there, and all the, you can say, tops of the trees are covered. The poet is standing under a hemlock tree, and the movement and alighting of a crow on that particular tree, alighting, suddenly there was a movement, you can say, alightment, ALIGHTMENT. So there was alightment of a crow on that hemlock tree, and which leads to make the dust of snow fall on the poet. Fine. So the crow is considered a symbol of ill omen, and it means bad happenings. And similarly, the hemlock tree is also considered poisonous, which is also considered, you can say, associated with poison. So both of the things, the tree and crow, are associated with ill omens. So he is standing there. They are not considered auspicious, fine, they're not auspicious things. So poet was standing there, and that on a wintry day, snowflakes fall upon his shoulder when a crow shakes, you can say, shook his head. And in first stanza they have mentioned just that, fine. So the negativity is created in the first stanza, you can say. Now in the second stanza, now there are 2 stanzas only, however in the second stanza, the falling of the snowflakes and scene, wintry scene, leave a tremendous effect on the poet. Rather than being negative, or rather than thinking negatively, he chose to be positive, fine. So but this ordinary natural happening, this is just one simple act of falling of snow on poet. It suddenly brings a desired change of mood in the poet Robert Frost. It gladdens his heart, fine. He becomes happy. He realizes that falling of snowy flakes on him has actually saved his day, fine. So now he has no regret, because otherwise the whole day would have been ruined, would have been wasted. But just because of this moment of falling snow on him has just made his day, fine. So this act of falling snow on poet brought a change in his mood and gladdened his heart and uplifted his spirit. Clear? Now let's move on to the literary devices, beta. Poetic devices and literary devices are one and same thing. First is, you can see alliteration is mainly used. Alliteration, what is alliteration? Alliteration is the repetition of same consonant sound in the nearby words. Now, what is the consonant sound? You know that there are 26 letters of English. Fine. And out of 26 letters, there are 5 vowels, A, E, I, O, U. And rest of the 21 letters, they are called consonants, fine, consonants. So alliteration is the repetition of some consonant sound. Means if there is a repetition of B, D, K, L, means fine, then we will be calling it alliteration. Clear? In the poem, which is the example of alliteration, better underline in your book only, or you can note down, has given my heart. H sound is repeated, beta. Here you can underline H. Her here. Has, heart. You can see alliterative words are has and heart. And second line is saved some part. Sir, see, saved ka sir yahan pe aur some ka sir. It is repeated. When sound is repeated, not word. Don't get confused, beta. When word is repeated, that is called repetition. वो भी एक poetic device होती है. Fine. If a word or a phrase is repeated again and again in the poem, that is called repetition. अगर कोई word repeat हो, but if a sound is repeated, like in this case, her and ss sound is repeated, this is called alliteration. Fine. We will be doing more poetic devices of this poem, but let's move on to second first. Majorly ये use हुई है और भी करेंगे अभी हम. Now. Analysis of literary devices in fire and ice. Now we will be doing fire and ice better. This poem is also written by American poet Robert Frost. Clear? Remember, this poet name should be remembered by you, beta. Yes. So central idea of this poem, Fire and Ice. Fire and Ice is extremely compact lyric, you can say. Compact is again small. Fine, little lyric, you can say. And the theme of the poem is actually a question in itself about the destruction of the world. I repeat, the theme of the poem Fire and Ice is actually based on the age-old question which is lingering in this world and which remained unanswered, that how the world is going to be destructed. The question is whether the world will end in fire or whether the world will end in ice. Fine, the poet decides that any of the two options would achieve the purpose sufficiently well. According to the poet, fire as well as ice, both the reasons are sufficient enough to bring destruction. Fine, but poet personally shares the common belief that everything that exists will have its end too. Fine, this is personally believed by the poet Robert Frost, that whatever is there, it will come to an end one day. People are divided on this issue. Some people favor fire and some people favor ice. Some think that natural element of fire will cause destruction, and some people believe that ice will be the cause of the end. But putting in terms of human emotions, you can say element of fire. Now I'll be explaining the symbolism used here. Fire stands for passions, unbridled desires, unfulfilled desires. Fine, that will be, and unfulfilled love, which will be the lead, you can say, which will be leading to end of this world. And according to poet, ice is like cold attitude and unexcited, you can say, without empathy, without compassion, indifferent attitude, जिसको हम कह देते हैं, जिसको कोई फर्क ही नहीं पड़ता है. So ice is representing indifferent attitude, insensitive attitude. When we lack compassion, we do not have sympathy or empathy for others. Fine. Then we called it the world will end in ice. So ice is representing cold attitude, fine, and fire is representing you can say passion and unfulfilled desires. And poet is favoring those who favor fire. Personally, he feels that the world will end in fire, but ice will also be sufficient enough to destroy this world. Fine. So this it does not matter how the world will end. Even the hate born out of cold and icy reason is sufficient to destroy this world. Clear? So he is just trying to make out and find out the answer which remains still unanswered, that how the world will end. Any doubt in this, beta? You can ask me. No doubt. Send me thumbs up if it is clear. Shall I just move forward with literary devices? हाँ जी, चलिए. First poetic device, you might not have heard about this, but they have used assonance. Right? Assonance is the repetition of vowel sounds in the same line, such as the long sound of O in I hold with those who favor fire. Beautifully, it is mentioned here. The way we have done beta alliteration. Alliteration में क्या होता था? Consonant sound repeat होती है. Then we call it alliteration. Like if I say bubbles bubbling in the bath, it means b sound is repeated again and again. That is called alliteration. Fine. But if vowel sound is repeated again and again, vowels are A, E, I, O, U. Fine. A, E, I, O, U. These sounds, when they will be repeated, then it is called assonance. Fine. Assonance is the repetition of vowel sounds. बस इतना याद रखना. Then see the example in this poem Fire and Ice. Underline. अपनी book सामने रख लो poetry की या फिर notebook पे लिखते जाओ. I hold with those who favor fire. O and O. Hold का O, those का O. ये repeat हुआ. It means assonance. Now let's move to second alliteration. Alliteration हमने अभी की है, repetition of consonant sound. Now यहाँ पे I hold with those who favor fire. Who favor fire. F sound is repeated here. That is a consonant sound. Fine. Consonant sound repeat होएगी तो it is alliteration. Vowel sound repeat होएगी तो it is assonance. This is clear to everyone. Now next is imagery. Imagery is used to make readers perceive things involving their five senses. Now what is imagery? When we are reading a chapter, beta, and there is imagery used which involve five senses. Means, for example, some say the world will end in fire. To say that for destruction, ice is also great. Fine. Actually, imageries are those words which form images in our mind. When such scenes are involved, that we start forming pictures in our minds, that we can very well imagine that what is happening in front of our eyes. We start, thinking about it. Our brain is working, our senses are totally involved. Fine. Such words are imagery. Fine. The world will end in fire. Some say the ice is also great. We start thinking about ice. We start thinking about fire breaking out somewhere. So such words are examples of imagery which create images in our minds. Fine. Then we have symbolism. Symbolism is the use of symbols to signify ideas and qualities by giving them symbolic meanings different from their literal meanings. Now, they are saying literal meanings are the real meanings of a particular word. Symbolic meaning is the deeper one. Fine. Fire is the symbol of desire here. Ice is the symbol of hatred and indifferent attitude. Fine. Green and gold are symbol of beauty and happiness. So these are the symbols used in this poem, Fire and Ice. Clear? Underline. Fire and ice both are symbols mainly. Then we have not, anaphora is a device, repetition of a word or expression in the first part of some verses. Now you might get confused. If you want to skip this, you can skip anaphora, but let me tell for those who want to know what is anaphora. I told you already, when a word or expression is repeated again and again, then it is called repetition. Fine. But if a word or phrase is repeated only in the beginning of the poem, but at last it is not repeated, then that is called anaphora. Like some say the world will end in fire, some say in ice. This some say and some say is repeated in the beginning beta. You cannot find some say in the middle or at last of the poem. So then it is called anaphora. Clear? जब कुछ words beginning of poem में repeat होते हैं but later on नहीं होते repeat, that is called anaphora. But if a particular word and phrase is repeated again and again, preferably it is repetition. अगर कोई word, अगर आप इसको repetition भी कह दोगे ना, even then it is correct, So when a word or expression is, आप बस repetition याद रखिए anaphora की जगह पे. Whenever a word is repeated, when a expression is repeated, then it is called the device of repetition. Clear? Now next is personification. Personification is to give human qualities to inanimate objects. Like ice and fire ko they have personified fire and ice actually. Fine, they are saying that fire will destroy this world or ice will destroy this world. How they can do it? So when human qualities are given to animals, birds, things, and inanimate objects, you can say, and animals and birds को हम skip कर सकते हैं because inanimate, they are animated ones. So when you can say human qualities are given to objects or things, then we call this personification. The fire and ice are capable of destruction. Therefore, the poet has personified fire as well as ice by giving them a mind which is capable of destroying. Clear? From what I have tasted of desire, I hold with those who favor. You can skip this one. बस personification तक आप करना है. Is that clear? चले हम next poem पे बेटा. We are left with 10 minutes only. Clear? पहले हम कर लेते हैं Tiger in the Zoo and you can say poetic devices. And after that आपकी जो queries होंगी, you can ask me. Fine? Fine, we will be doing now Tiger in the Zoo. Clear? Yes, Tiger in the Zoo, beta, it is written by Leslie Norris. Leslie, Leslie Norris, Norris. Fine. So, central idea of this poem is the tiger is a proud creature. Fine. And you can say it is just a very shameful thing that such a powerful, such an agile and untamable animal which cannot be tamed. ऐसे animals को बांध के या you can say you can't put them behind the bars, but even then human beings are doing this. So it is just a shameful thing to know that such a brave, such a powerful, agile, full of, you can say, strength and untamable animal should be caged in a zoo. Fine. So when such animals which are known for their, you can say, freedom, they are behind the bars in a cage, that is quite shameful. In his natural and wild habitat, he does not need help of any kind, whether to catch the prey, whether to hunt for his food. Fine, he is totally a free living creature over there. And he hunts not, you can say, for pleasure, but for food. His presence in natural habitat is necessary. Why it is necessary? Because there is everything is connected. There is a natural balance. You might have heard about that. There is one system that if one species start decreasing, it will affect human beings too. Fine. If any species of birds, animals, or plants start decreasing in number, it will affect our ecosystem because there is a chain. Human beings, animals, birds, animals, and you can say natural resources, everything is well connected in this chain. If anything of it will destroy, it will affect the chain. So they are saying in this poem, A Tiger in the Zoo, that sometimes the tiger may stray into human habitation also. He only displays his strength and ferociousness. Fine. But he does not harm anyone till he is provoked. He will be harming you when you are provoking him. But when you are not doing anything to this tiger, he won't be showing anything to you. Even in the cage, he ignores all the visitors who are coming to visit the zoo. And why he's ignoring? Because he just values his freedom above all. उसको और कुछ नहीं चाहिए. He just wants to be free. He wants to live a free life. He is just dreaming of freedom. You got this question also in the revision test. Why he was staring at the stars, gazing at the stars. Fine, because he wanted that sort of freedoms. Stars were shining freely in the sky. He shows his anger, hatred, and even, you can say, defiance by walking about in the rage in his cage. Human progress should not be at the cost of destroying the natural habitats of, you can say, proud animals like the tiger. So message which we bring home after reading this A Tiger in the Zoo is that human progress should not be at the cost of caging these wildlife animals. If we want to succeed in our life, we should not cage them. We should not put them behind the bars of cage. Let them be free. Let them lead their life. Let's not interfere into the ecosystem of this nature. Fine, let it be. The way you are living your free life, let animals also live their free life. They are not born slaves of yours. Fine. So Actually, wildlife should not be disturbed. This is the idea behind this poem, right? And at the same time, they have just put forth the emotions of animals who are behind the bars of the cage, right? Those who feel very stuck inside, how they have become irritated, how they do not like that visitors are coming and seeing them, rather than you can say they prefer to enjoy their natural life in the wild forest, you can say, right? So this is the message given by Tiger in the Zoo. Now let's move to literary devices used in this poem. Alliteration, use of sound P at the start of two words. Plump pass. Plump is that fat deer they have mentioned. Fine. Plump pass. So PP is repeated here. This sound is repeated. It means this is alliteration. Underline kar lo apna tiger in the zoo mein. Then we have imagery. The poet has tries to create an image of tiger's activity lurking in the shadow. Underline lurking in shadow. ये एक जैसे I already told you that when such words and expressions are used which forms pictures in our mind, so we start imagining कि okay, a tiger's shadow is being seen, or he's you can say lurking in shadow here means he's trying to hide himself behind a tree or bushes, or some you can say he's trying to hide because he wants to catch the prey, so he's trying to hide himself in a shadow. So we can very well imagine this scene. So this is imagery, lurking in shadow. Then next is onomatopoeia. Next poetic device पे आ जाओ. Now, but don't get scared by seeing the name, that how difficult the name is. It's not that difficult. You just need to understand it. Fine, beta. Onomatopoeia. This poetic device, this one. Onomatopoeia. Now, what is onomatopoeia? Onomatopoeia is that literary or that poetic device in which the sound of a word when we speak it and the actual sound produced by that creature matches. Fine, I will be giving you one example, then it will be more clear to you. If I say snake hiss, hiss, hiss is the sound produced by snake. The word is called hiss, but actually when snake produces sound, it is equivalent to hiss. This is the sound he produces also, and we call it hiss. So when both the things match, the actual sound and the name of the sound, when they do match, then we call it onomatopoeia. Fine. And in this snarling, snarling is growling sound produced by the tiger. You might have seen tiger is just producing, I cannot produce the tiger, it's a sound. So I'm just giving you example. The way he growls, the way he snarls, fine. So that's why the word snarling is onomatopoeia here. Is it clear to everyone? Or shall I repeat? You just, if you have any doubt, you keep on noting down somewhere, and at last I will be taking it. Assonance, I already told you, vowel sound is repeated, vowel sound is O and I. This is the example. Fine. O, O, O. Should around houses. O sound is repeated. This is assonance. Clear? See, personification is also used. Better you can get any line from the poem, any stanza from the poem or expression from the poem, and we can ask you, okay, tell the literary device used in this stanza, literary device used in this phrase or expression. Fine, in that we should know. Personification is the tiger is personified because the poet refers him as he. Otherwise, we never use he for animals and objects. We use it. Fine, but here they have used he for tiger, so tiger is personified. So personification is also used. Human qualities are given to tiger. Here assonance we have used already with the e sound. He, logged, concrete, cell. E is repeated here again and again. So assonance. Alliteration is use of consonant sound behind bars. B sound is repeated. That becomes alliteration. Clear? In detail we have done beta. Again in next stanza, alliteration is used when he hears. H sound is repeated here. This means it is alliteration. With his brilliant, I sound is repeated here. That becomes assonance. Fine. This is the next point that we won't be doing now. Clear? So any doubt to anyone? Yes. Yes, pitter patter of the rain. Tanya is saying last year we have done onomatopoeia. That is correct example, Tanya. Well done. So any other query, beta? All clear? No doubt to anyone regarding anything?